do it. Martha. Don't ruin the vibe. My sister Destiny's voice wasn't just loud, it was a command. Amplified by the ring lights and the high-definition camera pointed directly at my face. We were live. 200,000 people were watching the launch of her new signature detox smoothie line at the Pure Soul Retreat. A place so white and pristine, it felt more like a hospital than a resort. Destiny held the glass out to me. The liquid inside was golden, thick, and smelled faintly of saffron. But beneath the expensive spice, my nose caught something heavier, something oily, something that smelled like death. It's just a trust challenge. Guys, Destiny chirped to her followers, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. My big sister is going to prove that our ingredients are 100% safe and pure. She knew. She had to know. We grew up in the same house. She knew that even the smell of peanuts made my throat itch. She knew that eating them would close my airway in less than 3 minutes. I looked at my parents, Larry and Brenda, sitting in the front row of the makeshift audience. They were beaming, giving me little go-on gestures. Don't make a scene. Don't be difficult. Support your sister. The pressure was a physical weight, heavier than the glass in my hand. If I refused, I was the jealous, toxic sister, ruining her big moment. If I drank it, I was risking everything. But in that moment, the conditioning won. The years of being told my needs didn't matter won. I took the glass. I looked at Destiny, searching for a flicker of hesitation. A sign that this was a joke. There was nothing but annoyance that I was taking too long. So I drank. It didn't taste like saffron. It tasted like concrete pouring into my lungs. The reaction was instant. My throat seized. The glass slipped from my fingers and shattered on the white floor. The sound exploding like a gunshot in the silent room. I fell to my knees, clawing at my neck, gasping for air that wouldn't come. And the last thing I saw before my vision blurred was Destiny rolling her eyes and turning back to the camera. Ugh. She is so dramatic. You guys, ignore her. Before I tell you what my sister did when I hit the floor spoiler, she didn't call 911. Drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I want to see how far this story travels. It wasn't just that I couldn't breathe. It was that my body had instantly turned into a cage that was shrinking, crushing, and burning all at once. My tongue felt like it had swollen to the size of a fist, filling my mouth, choking off even the smallest gasp of oxygen. I was clawing at my throat, leaving red streaks on my skin, desperate to tear open an airway that no longer existed. The room spun in sickening white circles. Through the roaring in my ears, I heard my mother, Brenda, hissing, "Get up. Martha, you are embarrassing your sister." They thought I was faking. They actually thought I was acting out a scene to sabotage the live stream. Destiny was standing over me, phone still in hand, but she had angled the camera away, probably to protect the vibe of her feed. "Seriously," she snapped, looking down at me with pure disgust. "You had one sip. Stop being such a baby." The darkness was closing in from the edges of my vision. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird, frantic and terrifyingly irregular. I was dying. I was dying on a white marble floor in a room full of people who were more concerned about lighting angles than my life. Then, a shadow fell over me. It wasn't my father. It was Arthur. The venture capitalist Destiny had been trying to impress all weekend. He dropped to his knees beside me, his expensive suit trousers hitting the floor without hesitation. "She's going into anaphylactic shock," he shouted, his voice cutting through the murmurs of the confused guests. "Call 911. Now." He didn't wait for a response. He ripped open his jacket pocket and pulled out an EpiPen. I didn't even know he carried one. He didn't ask for permission. He jammed it into my thigh. The pain was sharp and sudden. A jolt of adrenaline that felt like being kicked in the chest by a horse. But almost immediately, the concrete in my lungs cracked. A thin, whistling stream of air forced its way in. I gasped. A ragged, ugly sound. My body arching off the floor. But my mind, my risk analyst mind, was still working, operating on a cold, survivalist frequency that bypassed the panic. Through my blurring vision, I saw Destiny. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at the pitcher of the smoothie sitting on the low table. She was reaching for it. "I'll just get this out of the way," she muttered to no one in particular. She was going to dump it. She was going to wash the glass. She was going to destroy the evidence. No, I couldn't speak. I couldn't stand, but I had one good arm. With the last ounce of strength I possessed, I didn't reach for my sister. I swung my arm out in a wide, clumsy arc and smashed my hand into the pitcher. I didn't knock it to the floor. I knocked it directly onto Arthur. The golden, saffron-laced poison splashed all over his pristine white linen suit, soaking into the fabric, staining him, branding him with the weapon that had almost killed me. Destiny shrieked. But it was too late. The evidence wasn't down the drain. It was preserved on the clothing of a billionaire witness. Then the darkness finally took me. When I woke up, the silence was absolute. No ring lights. No murmuring guests. Just the rhythmic, mechanical beep of a heart monitor. I was in a hospital room. The lights were dimmed. I turned my head, expecting, hoping, maybe, with some stupid, childish part of my heart, to see my parents in the chairs, to see Destiny looking sorry. The chairs were empty. I checked the clock on the wall. It had been 6 hours. I checked my phone on the bedside table. 0 missed calls. But there was a notification from Instagram. Destiny was live. Hey guys. The caption read, "Sorry about the drama earlier. Some people just can't handle the detox lifestyle. But the launch is still a go." I lay back against the scratchy pillow. The tears didn't come. Instead, a cold, hard knot tightened in my chest, where the fear used to be. They hadn't just left me. They had discarded me. And in that quiet, sterile room, the daughter in me finally died. The risk analyst was the only one who walked out of that hospital alive. Why does a professional risk analyst drink a glass of poison she knows will kill her? It wasn't stupidity. It wasn't even fear. Exactly. It was an invoice. An invoice that had been sitting in the back of my mind for 20 years. Accruing interest every single day. I lay in that hospital bed, listening to the hum of the machines keeping me alive. And I finally let myself look at the ledger I had been balancing my entire life. It started when I was 8 years old. We were at a family dinner. My mother had bought Destiny, who was 5, a pale pink silk dress. It cost more than my entire wardrobe for the year. There were peanut butter cookies for dessert. I ate one. I didn't know I was allergic. I just knew that within seconds, my stomach felt like it was trying to turn inside out. I dropped the cookie on the table and ran for the bathroom to vomit. Destiny saw the cookie. She didn't see that I was sick. She just saw something she wanted. She grabbed for it, slipped, and knocked the plate onto her lap. The grease from the peanut butter stained the pink silk. She started screaming. Not crying, screaming. Like she was being murdered. My parents rushed in. They didn't come to the bathroom where I was heaving on the floor, gasping for air, my face swelling until my eyes were slits. They went straight to Destiny. "Oh, her dress," my mother wailed. "Martha, look what you made her do, you clumsy, jealous girl." They rushed us to the emergency room, not for me, but for Destiny, because she had worked herself into a hyperventilating frenzy over the stain. I was dragged along, stumbling, my skin burning, my breath coming in ragged whistles. In the waiting room, I leaned against the wall, turning blue. A doctor walking by stopped in his tracks. He didn't look at the screaming 5-year-old, he looked at me. "This child is in anaphylaxis," he shouted, scooping me up. My father actually rolled his eyes. "She is fine. She is just doing this for attention, because her sister is the center of it." The doctor ignored him and saved my life. But the bill came later, and that was when the phantom debt was created. My parents sat me down at the kitchen table. They laid out the hospital bill for my treatment. They laid out the bill for Destiny's trauma checkup. And they laid out the ruined pink dress. "You cost this family $5,000 today," my father said, his voice cold and heavy. "Because you couldn't control yourself. Because you had to ruin your sister's moment." They didn't tell me I was sick. They told me I was expensive. They told me I was a liability. From that day on, every time I asked for something, new shoes, a school trip, affection, they would bring up the debt. "After what you cost us, after you almost killed your sister with stress." I grew up believing that my survival was a luxury they couldn't afford. I believed I owed Destiny a life debt because she had suffered so I could live. It was an invisible chain, forged in guilt and polished with gaslighting. That was why I drank the smoothie. In my mind, I was still the 8-year-old girl who had ruined the pink dress. I drank it because I thought if I just paid this one last installment, If I just proved I was good this one time, the ledger would finally be balanced. But as I stared at the sterile ceiling tiles, I realized something that made the bile rise in my throat again. The ledger was never going to be balanced. You cannot pay off a debt that was invented to enslave you. I expected silence. I expected the cold shoulder. What I didn't expect was a multimedia campaign. 36 hours after I was discharged. While I was sitting in my apartment trying to swallow water past the bruising in my throat, my phone lit up. It was an Instagram notification. Then a TikTok tag. Then a dozen text messages from extended family members I hadn't spoken to in years. Destiny had posted a video. I clicked on it. The thumbnail showed her face. Makeup-free, calculated vulnerability. Eyes, red-rimmed, strategic lighting. Sitting in her white bedroom. The title was, My Truth When Family Sabotages Your Dreams. I pressed play. Hey guys, she whispered, wiping away a dry tear. I've been so quiet because I'm just heartbroken. You saw what happened at the launch. I tried to include my sister. I tried to give her a platform. But she decided to turn a celebration of wellness into a scene about her issues. She took a shaky breath. It's just really hard when you pour your soul into a brand, and someone brings their toxic, negative energy into that space. I feel unsafe. My investors feel unsafe. The launch is on hold because of the drama. She didn't mention the peanuts. She didn't mention the EpiPen. She didn't mention that I stopped breathing. She mentioned negative energy. Then came the text from my father. Larry. It wasn't an inquiry about my health. It was an invoice. Arthur pulled the seed funding. The venue is demanding a cancellation fee. The PR team needs overtime to scrub the negative comments. You caused this damage. We expect you to cover the costs. $50,000. It's the least you can do after humiliating your sister. I stared at the screen. A normal person would look at Destiny's video and see a lie. But looking at it through the lens of a risk analyst, I realized something far more terrifying. She wasn't lying. Not to herself. This was the narcissist's distortion field. For Destiny, reality wasn't defined by biological facts, like airways or allergens. Reality was defined by the image. The image was the product, the currency, and the god she worshipped. When I collapsed on that floor, I didn't just have a medical emergency. I cracked the lens of the camera. I disrupted the aesthetic. To a narcissist, damaging their public image feels exactly the same as a physical assault feels to a normal person. She didn't feel guilty, because in her mind, she was the victim. I was the aggressor who had violently assaulted her live stream with my inconvenience. She genuinely believed that my anaphylaxis was a weapon I used against her, rather than a tragedy she inflicted on me. I looked at my father's text again. $50,000. They wanted me to pay for the privilege of almost being murdered. They wanted me to subsidize the cleanup of the crime scene. Something in my brain shifted gears. It was the click of a lock, disengaging. For 20 years, I had viewed my family through the lens of emotion, hope, guilt, love, obligation. I had been trying to solve an emotional equation. But this wasn't an emotional problem. This was a liability issue. I didn't reply to the text. I didn't comment on the video. I didn't scream into a pillow. I stood up. My legs were still weak, but my hands were steady. I walked to my desk and opened my laptop. If they wanted to talk about money, if they wanted to talk about who owed what to whom, then we were going to speak my language. I wasn't going to pay the invoice. I was going to conduct an audit. I sat at my desk. The only light in the apartment came from the blue glow of my laptop screen. It was 2 a.m. My throat still throbbed with a dull, bruised ache every time I swallowed. But my mind was crystal clear. I opened a new spreadsheet. I named it the audit. For the first time in my life, I stopped looking at Larry and Brenda as my parents. I stopped looking at Destiny as my sister. I looked at them as entities, as accounts, as liabilities. I logged into my bank archives. I went back 10 years, then 15, then 20. I pulled every transfer, every check, every Venmo request, every emergency, cash withdrawal. I lined them up against a second window on my screen, Destiny's social media archive. It didn't take long for the pattern to emerge. It was so blatant. It was almost insulting that I hadn't seen it before. October 14th, 2019. My father texted me in a panic. The furnace died. It's freezing. We need $3,000 for a replacement unit, or your mother will get sick. I had sent the money within 10 minutes. Draining my vacation fund. I scrolled to October 16th, 2019 on Destiny's Instagram. There she was, tagging herself at a 5-star resort in Cabo. Birthday week begins. Thanks to the parentals for the upgrade. The furnace hadn't died. My vacation fund had just been reallocated to Destiny's tan. August 3rd, 2021. My mother called, sobbing. They're going to foreclose. We're short on the mortgage. Just $2,000. I paid it. On August 5, 2021. Destiny unboxed a vintage Chanel bag on TikTok and called it an investment. That was the moment everything snapped into focus. I audited every request they had ever made, the root canal that was concert tickets, the car repair that was a branding consultant, the medical bills that were lip fillers. This wasn't help. It was laundering, emotional extortion designed to siphon money from me to fund Destiny. I worked through the night, calculating the principal and adding a conservative 7% annual compound interest, the return I would have earned had I invested instead of believed them. The total wasn't trivial. It was a house down payment, a retirement fund, my life, converted into cash and burned to keep Destiny warm. I called Arthur. When he mentioned his lawyers were preparing to sue over the assault, I stopped him. I didn't want to give a statement. I wanted to hire them for a forensic accounting of long-term embezzlement. I had the receipts, the dates, and the motive. Arthur's tone shifted. Bring the laptop, he said. Discovery uncovered something worse than hidden assets. Arthur's team subpoenaed decades of records, including my medical history. 3 weeks later, he called me in, furious. The evidence showed my parents had filed insurance claims under Destiny's name for illnesses she never had: asthma, immunodeficiency, respiratory failure, using my documented allergic reactions as the medical basis. My suffering created the symptoms. Destiny collected the benefits. The payouts went into a custodial account labeled Destiny's Future. The withdrawals paid for modeling classes, pageants, headshots, Disneyland. They hadn't neglected my illness. They had monetized it. Arthur was blunt: federal insurance fraud, identity theft, child endangerment, and mail fraud. 20 years of felonies. We weren't dealing with a civil dispute anymore. We were holding criminal leverage. At mediation, my family arrived, expecting concessions. Their lawyer proposed to trade my public apology in exchange for dropping Destiny's defamation claim. Arthur laughed. I stood and told them we were discussing surrender, not settlement. We played the live stream footage, the EpiPen. Destiny, rolling her eyes. Her attempt to destroy evidence. Arthur's team labeled it attempted murder, supported by texts to the caterer about hidden allergens. Then I slid the folder across the table. My father went gray reading it. Their lawyer read one page and quit on the spot, advising them to get criminal counsel. I demanded full restitution with interest. The house, Destiny's car, liquidation of her brand, and signed confessions. Or I called the FBI. They signed everything. 3 months later, the house was sold. My parents disappeared into a rented apartment. Destiny's brand was dissolved, her social media erased by court order. She was working retail, anonymous and unseen. The restitution cleared $2 million. I didn't feel victorious. I felt balanced. The debt column on my spreadsheet finally turned black. I deleted the family contact group and closed my laptop. I hadn't lost a family. I had written off a bad investment, and for the first time in 28 years, my ledger was clean.